Hey, it's Chris Lipper from On the Bus Sales Training, Coaching, and Consulting. And we have a class that might be of interest to some of you tomorrow. If anybody out there ever works on presenting pitch decks and you're not getting the results you want. So I think that with a lot of entrepreneurs, we lose sight of why we're there and why we do a lot of things. A lot of times the answer is because it feels good. We think we should be doing it, but we forget who these things are about. And I think that's the problem with entrepreneurs and creating and presenting pitch decks, that it becomes about them and their passion and their vision and them, as opposed to the investor. And it really should be about them, not us. Does that make sense? So we're going to go over all of that tomorrow. It's from chapter 12 in my book, and hopefully some of you will join us. So don't get left behind. Get on the bus. We have a seat for you. And I'm Chris Lipper from On the Bus Sales Training, Consulting, and Coaching. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the On the Bus Sales Training, Coaching, and Consulting class on creating pitch decks. And this is from chapter 14 of my book. And this is somewhat of a short class, but an important class. I'm not going to read it to you, but I will paraphrase it. And I am not in a situation where I get a ton of people coming to me with pitch decks, but it does happen. And I will focus. Can you guys mute yourselves if you don't mind? Lisa, for some reason.
I'm muted.
Okay.
That's not
Okay.
me.
All right, we're just going to keep going and not, there we go. We'll do it that way. Okay. So owners do come to me from time to time and they want to review their pitch deck with me, and we will go over it. And there's a lot of reasons why people have pitch decks. It could be to raise money, which there's nothing wrong with. It could be to start a business. It could be to buy a business. It could be to grow a business. And sometimes it's just to make it to the other side of things. But sometimes there may come a time in a business owner's life where they need to raise money. And they tend to think a way of doing it is with this big glamorous pitch deck. And as you can tell from the tone, I'm not a huge fan of these long PowerPoint presentations and pitch decks, but we'll discuss it. I find that most entrepreneurs tend to focus their presentation on their passions, on their products, on their vision or service, and totally forget about the deal, and more importantly, what's in it for the investor, which is the important part to the investor, right? So, and your passion and reasons for starting the company are wonderful, and congratulations, and it's great that you've done this and you're out of your starting block. But if you're bringing it to somebody to invest in their company, to be honest with you, they don't care. It's not the excitement that they're buying. It's the opportunity for them to make money. Is generally the case. So remember, when selling, who's it about? For those of you that have been through the sales training classes before, unmute yourselves. Who is sales always about?
Them.
Right.
Please.
So it's always about them. It's not about us, right? Recently, I had somebody bring me their pitch deck to review, and I think they really wanted money. It was interesting. It was pretty. It was interest to me because it was a vegan restaurant. The company's name was the person's name, which I never loved, because how do they get out of it? Find somebody else with the same last name to sell it to? You know, a lot of it didn't make sense. The place looked great. They did a great job on the menu, but there were no prices on the menu. They had no clue on vendors. They had no pitch in the pitch deck. There were no KPIs or behavioral goals and no numbers. So it was really just an idea, and they invested a lot of money into making this big, beautiful pitch deck. The biggest thing missing was the pitch. What's in it for the investor? And the entrepreneur's answer was typical: equity, but no more than 50%. That's what they always say, right? I'll give them equity, but no more than 50%. But why would the investor want equity, right? If somebody slips and falls in the restaurant, why does the investor want to be liable for that? You know, why would they want to be an owner in this thing? You know, there's other ways that investors, revenue is a way. That way they're paid off the top versus the bottom. There's a lot of ways to make a deal that makes sense for everyone. Also, just a side note, I've learned that if you ask for money, or if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. That's generally how those things work. Just think about it. The deal needs to make sense for you and the investor. Remember what you've learned in our negotiating classes, that your offer is the high, and whoever wants this less is going to win, right? You want to keep their interest. If you could get it down to a page or two, that would be great. You really don't need to go into your passions, and just kind of get to the facts, if that makes sense. Please consider giving up percentages of revenue versus equity. I'd rather get paid first than last. You can be the equity holder. You can do those big plans for down the road. The investor wants to get paid and maybe get out of this, maybe reinvest. That's, you guys will figure that out. And that's kind of my set. So executive summaries are a way to go. A pitch deck for me is, it's almost holding them hostage of their attention, if that makes sense. You just kind of get to it. And I have some other thoughts, but I'd like to hear yours. So does anybody here present pitch decks ever? Or would anyone consider it? You can go ahead, Sam. Any thoughts on that? Unmute yourself. You guys can all unmute.
I definitely consider it. I'm at the point where I need to learn how to do it. So would I consider it? Absolutely.
Okay. And so in your situation, they may want to see some data and some, let's say, patents and things, some IP that they are investing in. But you don't want to drown them in the data either. And with inventors, we got to be careful with the passion being overflowing. Get to the deal, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, get to the deal. I like it. I'm in the process of writing a loan application through the SBA. And this is to a very personal type bank. So they're more like investors than bankers. So I'm going to try to take this approach.
So, and is that for inventory?
That's for inventory and manufacturing space and employees, hiring employees to do manufacturing. It's for mainly
so it's not
manufacturing
for factoring
and inventory.
So factoring orders isn't a thing for you. It's more, it's strictly building. Okay. Okay. Other thoughts and comments or things that you've seen or attempts?
Me? Not
Anyone.
anybody.
Lois, you going to consider raising money at some point?
You broke up. I'm sorry. Am I considering what?
Raising money at some point? Would you consider bringing on some type of partner into your business? No?
Not,
okay.
not like a stakeholder. Not at this point.
Okay. Lisa, how about you? No, you're good?
Not yet. I don't really, I'm observing for a while.
Okay. Arthur, any comments from you? You see these things all the time. Love your feedback. I think you're muted. Hold on. I'm going to ask to unmute you. Go ahead.
I am the champion of using royalties, a percentage of your revenue, as being sold as opposed to your selling equity. And if you simply Google arthurlipper.com, you'll see 100 and some odd essays on why royalties are a better approach than the sale of equity. I'd be very careful about taking on partners or even selling stock Once you sell stock to one person, you become a fiduciary in that all of the information or all of the decisions you make must be considered to be in the best interest of all shareholders. So there are just very few situations where in a private company it's better to become, for the controlling shareholder, to become a fiduciary.
Okay. Other thoughts? And you see a lot of these things. Are you in agreement with most of what I said?
Yes, I agree. And as we've discussed in the past and over the years, I think pitch decks should be very brief and be ideas communicators rather than text communicators. I think it is absolutely wrong to use pitch decks as a means of getting data to people to be read. Pitch decks are simply to pace the presentation and are for the speaker's benefit, not the recipient's benefit.
Great point. And I think another point is you don't have to go through every slide just because you have them. If the conversation has moved on, if the conversation is getting to a place where you can close, don't feel you have to hit every data point that you've brought, right? So for those of you that are disc literate, I think Lois, I'm going to pick on you because you're probably the most disc literate here. And what's the disc profile you think of most of these types of people that would be presented to? Unmute yourself, please.
You know, there's a variety of people, right? It could, if you're presenting to someone who is, well, it's gonna depend on the person, Chris. I mean, there are so many variables when it comes to the disc personality typing. I
Okay.
mean, I'm kind of like a mishmash.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people that have bigger finance. Well, that's not even true. That's not even true. I mean, you have some C's who are very wealthy, and you have some I's who are very wealthy, and you have some S's who are really wealthy, and then you have some D's who are really wealthy to be able to do it. So I'm not really sure.
I don't know if the answer is just really wealthy, though. Those aren't generally the people that would be interested. Go ahead, Melissa. Unmute yourself.
I mean, I think I support what Lois is saying, but I'm thinking of when I am being approached to invest in something, my C would turn up my CS would turn up real, like that would be like the foot I would lead with, because I'd put on an analytical hat and I'd be cautious and I'd want to see the facts. I don't want to see the fluff.
I would agree. I think that
I'd also put my D on.
Yep.
Because I want people to be direct and tell me the effing truth.
So there it is. That's the answer that I was looking for, that it's D's and C's, right? So D's and C's are generally who you would present to. And D's and C's, where do they want to see the numbers? Up front, right? They don't want to see all the fluff. That's generally more for the person presenting. So again, let's get to the deal, if that makes sense, especially if you're presenting to D's and C's. So knowing their profile, they're going to lose interest. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Sam.
What's a C and what's a P? I know what a D is.
You got to stick around for a little while and go through some of our other classes to learn the lingo. But there's D's, I's, S's, and C's, and everybody is made up of a composite of them all. But there are different mindsets and types for different positions, and D's and C's typically are the people we're presenting to in this scenario.
What does the C stand for? D is direct.
Sam, it's an hour conversation.
Okay.
But C's are analytical. That's what you need to know. They're not fluffy. They're all about analysis and money. It takes them a little while to make a decision, but when it's made, it's made. Okay, so just to review, any questions, any thoughts, any comments up to this point? I told you this was a quick class. So just to review, so who is the sale about? Unmute yourselves. Them. Right? Who is the deal about? Them. Who cares about your passion?
No one.
You. You. Right.
You only care about it.
Who cares about the deal and what's in it for them? Them. Right? So offer a deal. No one really cares about your passion. I'm sorry. That's just the reality. It may be what got you in the door, but that's not what a pitch deck is. I think many, many people forget to make a pitch in a pitch deck. There's no offer, right? So think about an offer that you can live with and others can live with that makes sense for all of you. Good? Okay, that's the end of that. I'm going to stop the recording.